Hey, I'm Terri Savelle Foy. I'm so glad you're watching today. I want to talk to you about effective goal setting tips. You've probably watched many podcasts on the topic of goal setting. I know I have. In fact, I've taped several podcasts on this very topic. In fact, we did a Google search and discovered that there's 671 million results on the topic of goals. There was over 10 million results on the topic of goal setting. So there's plenty of information out there to help you set goals and set goals effectively. Well, the question is, are you doing it? Because I know for years and years of my life, I knew the importance of having goals and setting goals, but I didn't know how to do it. And consequently, I was doing it wrong year after year after year. In fact, you've heard me say how I would get out my sheet of paper and I would write these big goals like, I want to lose some weight, get in shape, I would write. I want to get closer to God. I want to read the Bible more. I want to save money. I want to get out of debt. I want to get the house organized, things like that. And then the end of the year would come and I would think nothing happened in my life. I'm not accomplishing any of my goals. I didn't get closer to God. My house is still a mess. I'm not in shape. I'm still in debt. Nothing was happening because I was setting goals the wrong way. In fact, I read where the most common goals are lose weight, save money, get out of debt, quit smoking, eat healthier, get closer to God, spend more time with family, read more, and get the house organized. Well, that sounds exactly like my old list, except the quit smoking, because I never took that habit up. I feel like it would mess up my lipstick too much. But my point is, these are the most common goals that people set. And then most of us come to the end of the year completely frustrated because nothing happened. Well, the reason these goals are not working is because they're too broad. They're unclear and they're vague. So I know you've probably heard this before, but I want to give you these quick tips to help you. I just want to illustrate how to set goals the right way because I believe it will take your life to a whole new level. I know what it's done for me. So you've heard the acronym for SMART goals. That's specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and a timeline. Well, let me break that apart for you and I'll just give you an illustration to help you so that you can start setting goals the right way. Specific, that just means you must bring clarity to what you want to accomplish by being as specific as possible. For example, like I said, I used to say, I will save more money this year. End of the year would come and I had no more money. Well, that's because I wasn't specific. So if you were to just write, I will save $6,000 by December 31st. Just writing that goal down is very specific. Then you can break it apart even more and say, I will save $500 every month. And then you just put it in writing and you make that clear that every time you get paid, once a month, you are determined to put $500 in your savings or $250 from every paycheck. You got to break it down and be as specific as possible. The next one is measurable. This is where you can truly measure whether or not you really hit a goal. A lot of people like myself, I used to say get in shape. Well, what does that mean? Or lose weight. How much weight? If you lost 2 pounds, does that mean you can check it off and say you reached your goal? No, be specific and be measurable. That would mean saying something like, I will weigh 120 pounds by May 31st. If your current weight is 130 pounds. Whatever that means to you, you have to make it measurable so that in the next month, the next 3 months, the next 6 months, you've reached your goal. So make it measurable. Action-oriented. They say it's so important to use action verbs when you're setting your goals, instead of just saying things like, I will be more consistent with working out. What does that mean? When you use an action verb, it speaks volumes to you because it gives you clarity. When you're saying invest, enroll, save, reduce, eliminate, whatever it is, use an action verb. So I would say things like, I'm going to exercise 5 days a week by walking 20 minutes. I'm going to walk 20 minutes 5 days a week. You can say that however you want. But it's so clear, there's no confusion. It's not just be more consistent. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean you're going to do the treadmill, you're going to do the elliptical, you're going to lift weights? No, if you're specific like that with an action verb, you're saying, I will walk 20 minutes 5 days a week. The next one is being realistic. If your goals are too big and they're so far out into the future, then it just, like I said before, it eliminates your hope to even want to achieve this dream because it's so outside the realm of possibility. Now, I'm talking about your goals and specifically your short-term goals. I'm not talking about your big dreams, but your goals, so when you set a goal like, I will save $50,000 by December 31st, and then your current salary is $70,000, that's a little unrealistic unless, you're living somewhere debt-free and somebody's taking care of you, but that's a little bit unrealistic. So a proper way to set that would be, I will save 10% of my current salary, $70,000, which means $7,000. So be realistic when you're setting your goals, or else you set yourself up to be very discouraged. And then the last point in SMART goals is a timeline. In a sentence, deadlines are motivating. You've heard people say the most productive day of the year is the day before vacation. Why? There's an amazing deadline coming up. Well, you get motivated. They say the best way to get your house finally cleaned up, invite company over. You get that thing whipped into shape so fast because there's a deadline, right? Well, it's the same with your goals. Whether you have a goal to get your master's degree, to get your realtor's license, to get in shape, to write a book. Don't just say, my goal is write a book. No, put a deadline to it. Say, I will finish this manuscript by October 31st. So when you set a deadline, a timeline for yourself, it motivates you to finish. And then finally, I want to add this point because I find it to be so important, is when I set goals for myself, I always add pictures. I add images to my goals. And let me just clarify, that's not really me in a bikini. That's a goal. No, I'm kidding. It's really not me. I wish it was. But my point is, when you put images to your goals, it causes your desire to be elevated because it just looks so real. In fact, when I set financial goals, I always either get a picture of money or something, put the goal on there. Like, say, for example, you set a goal for $10,000 to save $10,000 this year. I put the picture, I put it in writing, and then I always add increments like 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, all the way down to 1,000. And when I get $1,000, I mark through it. It keeps me so motivated to want to mark through every one of those until I get to the 10 and I can check the whole goal off. If you have a goal to, pay off your car, I always tell people, I encourage you to do this. Go get a picture of you standing in front of your car doing your victory jump and call the bank today. Find out how much you owe on that car and then set the goal in writing. Say, I'm driving a debt-free car, $7,436.08 by September 30th, whatever your goal is. But when you see that and you're praying over these goals every day, it causes your motivation to go to a whole new level. So now I like to put numbers to my goals. I like to keep it as neat as possible. Yes, I put big visions up there too, but I also put smaller goals. And I just want to challenge you to do the same thing because I'm telling you, I've seen what God has done in my life when I've applied these quick tips, and I believe He'll do the same for you. But also, real quick, put it somewhere in sight. Put it somewhere where you're going to see it every day. A lot of times people ask me, Terri, how many vision boards do you have? I have 2. I have one at home for my personal goals, and I have one at the office for my business and ministry goals. The one at home is in my closet. I see it every day. I pray over it before I leave the house. My daughter, she has one in her bathroom. She said that way she sees it every single day, and now it's just become a habit. When she goes in there to brush her teeth, she sees her vision board, she prays over her goals. And when you see them, like I said, it keeps you just so compelled to want to check those off. So, out of sight, out of mind. Put it somewhere in sight. Here's a powerful principle. You become what you behold. So keep it in sight. I hope you've enjoyed these quick tips, and more than anything, I hope you apply them to your life. If you're enjoying the podcast, please subscribe to this channel. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter so I can keep you motivated to achieve your dreams. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. I believe it's one thing to have a dream for your life, but when you discover God's plan for your life, that's the icing on the cake.
It's more than a women's conference. It's a 2-day event that can change the course of your life. So make plans now to join Terri, Savelle Foy, and women from around the world at Icing 2016. You don't want to miss this unforgettable weekend of awesome worship, new friendships, fun-filled activities, and practical life application teaching with Terri. It's a sweet treat you don't want to miss. We'll see you at Icing 2016, October 14th and 15th at the Will Rogers Coliseum in Fort Worth, Texas. For more information and to register for this free event, visit Terri.com. Don't wait. Register today